I'm Joshua Freedman, the CEO of 6 Seconds, the world's largest organization for emotional intelligence. For over 2 decades, we've been bringing emotional intelligence tools and strategies to the world, and I want to share that with you. Let's talk about empathy for business. Why are companies like Google and Adobe talking so much about empathy? Earlier this year, Google's chief innovation evangelist said empathy is the difference maker. I'm going to give you a little bit of the case and then 3 obstacles that leaders face that'll help you understand how you can actually use empathy to get better results for yourself, for your team, and for your organization. First of all, in this forum from Google, talking about innovation, the point is that right now innovation isn't an option, it's a requirement. In a time of significant change and upheaval, we have to adapt. And actually, COVID-19 gives us an excuse and an opportunity to make some changes that we've been needing to make. It also creates an intense pressure for businesses to adapt, and therefore for you as a leader to adapt. Understanding how empathy is a business skill will help you be more effective with and through people. In their 2021 design report, Adobe said empathy is an underutilized differentiator. In other words, as we work on the process of design, we need to think about people, not just the people who are going to be making a product, also the people who are going to be using a product, also the people who are going to be delivering that product. We need to think about this pipeline of the human side of performance. What we know from research on empathy is that, first of all, it's declined significantly in the last 15 years. And that's one of the reasons why empathy is such a strong differentiator today. Because it's declining in the world, it means that those who have it really stand out in their ability to connect with and understand people. But the business case for empathy isn't just about design and innovation. It's also about psychological safety and the requirements for people to perform. Even before the pandemic, loneliness was at its highest measured level, and it's even worse now. Now, you might not really care about that as a business leader, except when you understand that when people feel disconnected, they're less motivated, they're less open, they're less adaptable, they're less willing to take risks, they're less willing to share information, they're less willing to come on board with change. They're less willing to try something new, and they're less loyal. So if you want high performance from your people, you're going to need to bridge that disconnect. And in a time when so many people are working remotely, that's even harder to do. We've got these intense pressures that are pulling people apart, making them feel disconnected, causing them to shut down, and you need the opposite in order for your business to work. So empathy has become a need to have, not just a nice to have. Here are 3 reasons that leaders have told me they find empathy to be difficult. And this will give you some strategies for how you can actually use empathy as a leader. The first is connected with this business case for empathy. A lot of leaders say, this people stuff isn't my job. They'll say things like, I don't have time for all these people issues. We need HR to take care of this. Could you come in and fix these people for me? Well, this is a gross misunderstanding of the job of leader. Leadership is a people business. When you're leading, you're not just leading tasks and budgets. You're leading people through those mechanisms. And if you shift your thinking about what leadership is and what your job is as a leader to say, really what my job is about is people and setting up the conditions for people to flourish and succeed and do the work that needs to get done. If you think about leadership in that way, then all of a sudden empathy makes a ton of sense as a resource that you're going to need because it helps you understand people, helps you connect, helps you solve problems, helps you move situations forward. This brings us to the second misunderstanding about empathy, and this idea that many leaders have that empathy is something soft, touchy-feely, squishy, HR. It's as if we really want people to be robots, and we want to be robots ourselves as leaders. And, sometimes leaders will say, like, well, let's just leave emotions out of it. And that's actually an incredibly stupid idea. Like, you want to leave out loyalty, trust, connection, joy, motivation, fun, creativity, wonder. Those are emotions. And if you want to have emotions that bring people into the workplace engaged and on fire and creative, trusting each other, solving problems, connecting with customers, connecting across the organization, influencing people across boundaries, you're going to need a lot of emotion in your workplace. And that means you're also going to have to deal with the complex, messy feelings, sorrow and worry and anger. Those are valuable feelings too. Now, it doesn't mean we have to turn our office into a therapy class. We can deal with emotions in a way that's effective and productive, but pretending that we should leave them out or pretending they're not our job isn't really going to help us. Part of the problem with this misunderstanding of empathy in a business context is that some leaders, when they hear empathy, what they think is, I'm going to let people do whatever they want, or I'm not going to set any limits. And they'll say things like, I have to reduce my workforce, and if I'm too empathic, I won't be able to do that. And this is an important confusion because it shows how we've gotten a lack of understanding that feelings and actions are two different things. Feelings and thoughts are two different things. So somebody comes to you and says, I'm feeling X, and you say, I recognize that feeling. It doesn't mean you agree with their behavior, or it doesn't mean you agree with their thoughts. Validating somebody's feelings, recognizing somebody's feelings, doesn't mean that you don't set limits about the behavior. It doesn't mean you say, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, just you're feeling X, go with it. That's not a lot of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about being smart with feelings, using feelings in a way that's effective. So when we're empathizing, it doesn't mean we're saying like, oh, okay, yeah, now all of a sudden there are no limits. Oh, sure, you don't want to come to work for the next 2 weeks, don't. That's fine. Empathy is about saying, yeah, I get it. It's really hard. Tell me more. What are some options that you have? How can I support you in this while we also get the work done that we need to get done? How can I remove some barriers to help you achieve what you need to achieve and deal with the complexities that you're facing? That's what empathy sounds like. Yes, it does take a little bit of time. What happens is, when you spend a little bit of time empathizing, you get back a lot of time later because you really have understood the situation and the challenges, and then people are going to work together more effectively. Bottom line here, emotions drive people, people drive performance. When we work on the emotions, empathy is a tool that's going to help us understand that and set up the emotional conditions for performance to happen. The last obstacle I hear about from leaders is they say, well, what do I do if somebody shares feelings with me? I mean, if I ask somebody how they're feeling and then they tell me, like, how do I fix that? How am I supposed to solve that? I'm not trained in all this emotion stuff. And I totally relate to this because that's how I saw it in the past as well. What I've learned is that you don't really need to do very much with people's emotions. People can take responsibility for their own feelings. Empathy isn't about fixing people. It's about listening to them and listening to yourself as well. It's about making a space for a connection to happen. And in that space where the connection happens, they don't need your solutions. They don't even need your advice. What they most need from you is a little bit of listening and to feel supported. And what you'll experience when you start practicing more empathy in the workplace is that you have better conversations. You cut through the BS a lot more quickly. You get to the real issues and you understand people better. And in that understanding, you're going to find solutions. And it's not about you fixing them or solving the problems for them. In fact, when you find yourself in that position of saying, oh, let me make you feel better, you're probably not empathizing. You're probably sympathizing. Empathy isn't solution-focused. Empathy is relationship focused, and just a moment of listening makes a tremendous amount of difference. There was a great research study that was done on this with doctors, and they found that doctors who empathized in the first part of an office visit, the overall time of the office visit was the same or less than when they didn't empathize. But the patients walked out feeling much more supported and much more likely to adhere to the doctor's advice. What this says is that empathy does take a little bit of time up front, but it saves you time later. Not because you're taking action and fixing things, but you're hearing a little bit more deeply and you're figuring out what's really going on. So you're standing shoulder to shoulder with the people you're working with. They feel that. It helps to build trust. It helps to build relationship. It helps to build belonging. It sets them up to be more innovative and open, better problem solvers, more committed to the work, more committed to you, and together you get better results. So quick recap. 3 issues give us 3 strategies. The first, this people stuff is not my job, reminds us to put people at the center of our leadership. The second, empathy would mean being too soft, not setting limits. The solution, a muscular form of empathy. A form of empathy that's about listening to people and understanding them and helping them take responsibility for what's going on. The third, I don't know what to do when people share their feelings with me. Don't do. Be. Show up. Listen. Be a leader. Empathy is going to help you do it. If you'd like to learn more, ask us a question in the comments and we'll share resources with you and help you figure out what the next steps are for you to build these capabilities for high-performing leadership yourself, with your clients, and in your organizations.